Hey, Shalom, Sister Kate here. I was on the Twitter this morning and I read a post. I'm not going to tell you what it said because I don't remember the exact words, but the gist of it was this is a political problem, this pandemic. It's a political thing that, somehow Donald Trump is responsible for. And I thought, this person doesn't understand the medical side of the situation and why this is not a political thing. So I thought I would just crystallize everything down to just something that is black and white, literally, color on a whiteboard, so that you can understand that it's been politicized, but what didn't start out as a political problem. It's a medical problem. Okay, so you only have 3 choices in a pandemic. You only have. There is no, fault here and fault there and everything, because in a medical situation, it's just like if you get a cut on your arm. If you get a cut on your arm, you're cut. The time before you got cut on the arm, your arm is whole like this. After you get the cut on your arm is now forever changed, and there's a cut, and you have to deal with it. Sometimes the cut's not that bad and you get a Band-Aid. Sometimes it's super bad and you have to have stitches or repairs or whatever. It's the same with the virus. You either have the virus or you don't have the virus, and that's it. It's a polar situation, either or. You have no other choices in that case. So your 3 choices in a pandemic are, here, I'm going to sit down because this thing is actually a lot shorter than I am. So your first choice is quarantining yourself. What does quarantine mean? Quarantine means you isolate yourself from the virus. Quarantining is not just wearing a mask, but I go to the store and I buy things. Quarantining is like an absolute cutoff. You don't even risk exposing yourself to it. You are completely cut off from it. So for a modern day person, isolating yourself basically means you become self-sufficient and you stay in your protected, isolated space. Now, if you live in a city, this means you stay in your apartment and you disinfect, everything. If you have to call for food or something like that, you have it delivered out in front of where you are, and then you let it sit there, and what am I trying to say? You have to leave that stuff outside your home or have some sort of process where you're completely protected, and you go out there and you spray it, or you put it in the freezer or whatever, but you don't expose yourself to the virus. That's your first choice. Your second choice is to risk exposure. And this is I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to let anybody dictate to me how I'm going to run my life every day. And I'm going to do things, most people decide I'm going to do things like normal, like there's no danger at all. And this is a choice you have. You go to the store, you go to work, you don't wash your hands, you don't wear a mask, you just do what you normally do. You're risking exposure to the virus. Okay? That's your second choice. Act like everything's normal. Your third choice is then a result of what you've done with 1 or 2. If you risk exposure and you catch the virus, then you either survive it, and there is, when you go to the websites like the CDC website and they talk about the numbers for the day, they talk about how many people have caught it, how many people have survived it, and then how many people didn't survive it. And right now the survival rate is, I think it's 99% or something, because the death rate is anywhere from 0 to 6%, right? So 94% survival rate of people who catch it. And then 6% death rate, right? Because if you catch it, you only have the two outcomes. You either survive it or you don't, right? Okay, so here we have the three choices. I've already introduced them and I've talked to you about them. And with this, some of you are saying to me, Sister Kate, if you have this 94% survival rate, and I say survival, recovered, they call it recovery rate, right? You're recovered from the virus, then my chance of getting it is very small, and I don't need to risk, I can risk exposure because there's a very large chance I'm not going to get it. Well, these things don't actually don't represent the chance that you're going to get it. Because the thing that's going to affect right here is the high transmissibility. This is that R factor that has been talked about in the beginning part of this virus. And it's, at the very minimum 1-to-1. That means one person is going to give it to one other person. But this can be as high as 1 to 20 or 30 for those people that they talk about who don't show any symptoms. Because they walk around infecting more than one person because nobody can tell they have it. So these numbers kind of change. Out of 330 million, I think that's what our population is right now in the United States. If, it's, you can kind of do these numbers in your head. If you have 100 people who are not showing symptoms and they go out and infect 30, you can see an exponential growth. It's going to go from, a few people having it to a lot of people having it. Even with 1-to-1, once you've got one person and they've given it to one person, then now you have two people and they can give it to two, and those two become 4, and it just grows. So your chances of getting it are pretty high as time goes on. So, and we've seen an example of that. Look at this. It's hard to be a very serious instructor when you've got a cat who steals your chair. As time goes on, like we said, then your chances of catching it get bigger and bigger. And the press said, and I said it in some of my videos, these people out there protesting, they're not going to spread this around. But if we look back at the numbers, the growth spikes that we're having right now are right after all those protests where thousands of people are gathering together, and all of a sudden the numbers go up. Same thing with, it correlates with opening up, people pushing to have, I want to go get my hair cut, I want to go hang out in the bar and drink and whatever. Now the numbers are spiking up, the number of cases are spiking up, and the number of deaths. Because people are saying, well, it doesn't matter if a lot of people got it if most people are surviving it or recovering from it. But the amount of deaths went up in a ratio to the amount of people who had it. So it is a direct relationship there. The more you're exposed, the more chance you're going to get it. And the number of people who get it seriously is not the same as the death rate. It's about 20% of people will get a serious case, and of those 20% who will get a serious case, then a smaller number of them actually pass away from it. People with the risk factors, older people, diabetic, overweight, history of heart disease, or you've smoked your whole life. And of the American populace, there's a lot of people with those risk factors. Because in general, America's gotten, chunkier over the years. All the numbers talk about the rise in diabetes and so on. So that's why this number right here does not necessarily relate to your individual risk factor, because the more you expose yourself, the more chances that you will get it. And we also have to take that with a grain of salt, because we're a huge country, and so the risks in the middle of Wyoming, which is one of the least populous states in the whole nation, are not the same as the risks of someone living in Los Angeles or New York or one of the larger cities, Atlanta, Chicago. Your risks there is going to be higher than the person who's living in a rural area of Wyoming. So you have to think. You cannot apply the whole number thing to your individual situation. You may live in the middle of Wyoming and your risk factor is going to be really small because you're quarantined just by where you are, whether you intended it to be that way or not. So you have to take all these things in effect. So these are your three choices. This is how it runs, no matter what. It's an either or with a virus. It's just like the flu. The seasonal flu, there is no cure for it. There's no cure for the common cold. You just... Sorry, I had somebody text me, so it interrupted the video. So, it's decision time, y'all. What are you going to do? Which choice are you going to make? And then how are you going to deal with it? Because the other part that I've talked about in other videos is, even if you're a healthy 30-year-old, it doesn't matter. Once you get this virus, you either survive it or it kills you. And you don't know what it is, because there are cases of young, healthy people catching it and it killed them. And there are cases of like a 90-year-old, I think she was even maybe 90-plus-year-old Holocaust survivor also survived COVID. It's kind of an individual thing. Is your body going to be able to fight it off or not? And so there you go. Time to make a choice. I know what my choice is. All right, bless you all. Shalom.